I had just moved into that house with my parents a few weeks before it happened. The neighborhood wasn't bad, not perfect either, but it felt quiet. Maybe a little too quiet, if I think about it now. My parents were happy about the move. They thought it would be a good fresh start, a safer place than the old city we came from, and I believed them. I wanted to believe them because I was tired of the noise, the constant sirens, the shouting, the way the night never felt like night. So when we got here, it felt different. Nights were actually dark. Streets were empty. You could hear the wind against the trees, and sometimes if you paid attention, you could even hear your own heart beating in that stillness. At first, it was calming. Then, slowly, I started realizing how unsettling it could be. That night, my parents decided to go out to meet some old friends. They told me they'd be back late, maybe close to midnight, and I didn't think twice about it. I was used to being alone sometimes, and honestly, I was looking forward to it. I wanted the whole living room to myself. I wanted to turn off the lights, grab some snacks, and finally watch that horror movie I'd been putting off because I knew my mom hated those. Everything was fine, at least for the first hour. I was sitting there with the glow of the TV bouncing off the walls, half lost in the movie, half lost in my own thoughts when I heard it. A sound outside. At first it was faint, like someone shifting their feet on gravel, and I told myself it was nothing, probably just the wind or maybe some animal out there. But then, I thought I heard voices. I muted the TV. I sat there, holding my breath, waiting. It was so quiet in that room I could hear the refrigerator humming from the kitchen. And then it came again, muffled, broken words like two people whispering, but not whispering enough to hide that they were there. My first thought was ridiculous. I told myself it had to be from the movie, some kind of echo in my head, because I've done that before, you know? Watched something scary and then convinced myself I was hearing it in real life. But I wasn't imagining this. The voices were outside. I stood up, and I don't even know why I did it, but I started checking the house, room by room, upstairs and downstairs, making sure no window was open, no door unlocked. My heart was racing, and I felt stupid, but also not stupid enough to ignore it. Still, after a full check, I found nothing. No one at the back, no one near the garage, no shadows moving in the yard. By the time I came back to the couch, I had almost convinced myself it really was just in my head. So I sat back down, unmuted the movie, tried to sink into it again. And that's when it happened. 3 knocks on the front door. Not light knocks, not playful either, firm, slow, like whoever was out there wanted me to know they weren't going anywhere. My stomach dropped. I froze. Every single thought I had started spinning. Should I open? Should I ignore it? Should I run upstairs and pretend no one was home? I don't know what made me do it. Maybe curiosity, maybe fear. But I went to the door and I looked through the spy hole. 2 men were standing there. I had never seen them before. They weren't dressed like neighbors, not the kind of casual, friendly look you'd expect. One of them was wearing a cap pulled low over his head. The other had this faint smile like he was already too comfortable being at my door. And then one of them said, "Hey, we live around here. Thought we'd introduce ourselves. Mind if we come in for a minute? We just wanted to tell you a little bit about the area." The way he said it sent chills down my spine. I can't explain it, but something about the tone, the choice of words, it wasn't right. I didn't open the door. I just stood there, pressing my eye harder into the spy hole, feeling sweat run down my back. I managed to answer, my voice shaking more than I wanted it to. "I'm sorry, my parents aren't home right now. Maybe you can come by another day." There was a pause. Then the man smiled wider. "Another day won't work. We're busy. Doesn't matter if your folks aren't home. You can listen. Won't take long." That was the moment the fear really hit me. My gut screamed at me. These weren't neighbors. And the sounds I heard earlier, the whispering, the shuffling, what if it had been them, circling my house, waiting? I stepped back from the door. My hands were trembling as I grabbed my phone and called my dad. I told him everything, and I could hear the sharpness in his voice instantly. He told me not to open the door, not even a crack, to lock every window, every entrance. He said he'd call someone he knew in the area to check, and he was also going to call the police. While I was still on the call with him, the knocking came again, this time harder, louder. I went back to the spy hole, but now there was only one man. The one in the cap was gone. My heart almost stopped, because where the hell had he gone? I ran from door to door, window to window, checking, closing curtains, making sure no one could see inside. My chest felt tight, like I couldn't breathe properly, and every little creak of the house made me jump. Then, in the distance, I heard it. Voices again, but not the same ones. Shouting. People. A commotion outside. Within minutes, the neighborhood wasn't quiet anymore. A group of people, neighbors, the ones my dad had called, showed up, and somehow they caught the two men near the street. There was a struggle, yelling, and by the time the police arrived, the men were on the ground, restrained. Later, I found out they weren't neighbors at all. They weren't even from the area. They had been scoping out houses, looking for a way in, planning robberies. And mine, that night, had been their target. I still think about how close it was. How if I had opened that door, even just a little, they would have pushed in. I think about the way one of them disappeared from my view, probably circling to the back looking for another way in. I think about how helpless I felt, standing in my own house realizing the walls around me weren't enough to keep me safe. And I don't watch horror movies alone anymore. Because nothing on a screen will ever be scarier than the sound of someone knocking when they shouldn't be there. I don't really tell this story too often, mostly because anytime I try, people either look at me like I'm joking, or they laugh it off, saying I must have been half asleep. But the thing is, I know what I saw that night. And even though it's been years now, I still think about it sometimes, especially when I'm in a quiet room by myself, and I get that same uneasy feeling in my chest. So, this all went down when I went to crash at my cousin Jake's place for the weekend. We basically grew up together, but after high school we kind of drifted and didn't see each other much. He lives a couple hours out in this small town that honestly doesn't have much going on. But I wasn't really worried about that. I just needed a break from my own place for a while. His house wasn't old in the sense of falling apart or anything, but it had that lived-in look. Furniture that had been around for years, and walls that had seen a lot of seasons, if that makes sense. It wasn't creepy at first, just normal, like any regular family home. His mom was there, his younger sister too, and everyone seemed happy to have me visiting. We had dinner, watched some TV, and then around midnight, we all kind of drifted off to our rooms. Jake gave me the spare room upstairs, right at the end of the hallway. I remember walking in and thinking it smelled faintly like wood, maybe because of the old dresser in the corner, or maybe just because the room didn't get used much. The bed was made, but the sheets were kind of stiff, which I figured was just because nobody ever slept there. I was tired, but not completely out of it. Still scrolling my phone, thinking I'd probably be up for another hour. That's when I noticed something in the corner, right by the closet door. At first, I didn't even pay much attention. I thought maybe Jake had left a coat hanging or something, but the longer I looked, the less sense it made. It wasn't shaped like clothes hanging on a rack. It was broader at the top, like shoulders, and it didn't move at all, even when I shifted my head or blinked my eyes. My first thought was, maybe it's just a trick of the light, because the blinds were half open and the moonlight was spilling in. But deep down, I knew it wasn't just light. My heart started pounding harder than I wanted it to, and I remember literally whispering to myself, "It's nothing. It's nothing," like some kind of kid trying to convince himself not to be scared. I pulled the blanket up, rolled over, tried to force myself to close my eyes. And somehow, after a while, I must have drifted off. though it wasn't good sleep, more like that restless, half-dreaming kind, where you wake up over and over. In the morning, I woke to sunlight cutting through the blinds, and the very first thing I did was look straight at the corner. There was nothing there, no shadow, no coat, no shape at all, just a plain wall with the closet door closed like it had been. My stomach sank in that weird way where you're both relieved and uneasy at the same time. At breakfast, I brought it up casually, like, "Hey, did anyone come into my room last night?" Everyone looked at me like I was speaking another language. Jake shook his head and said, "No, why would anyone go in there?" His sister laughed and asked if I'd been having nightmares. Even his mom just said maybe I'd dreamed it. But here's the part that really stuck with me. I pressed them, not in a joking way. I actually said, "I saw someone or something in the room, right in the corner by the closet." And all of them, every single one, swore nobody went upstairs after we all went to bed. His mom said she was in her room reading until she fell asleep. His sister said she was on FaceTime with a friend. Jake said he passed out right after brushing his teeth. They all told me the same thing. Nobody had been in that room. I didn't say much after that, just kind of nodded and kept eating. But the whole time, my chest felt tight, like I'd swallowed something heavy. I know what I saw, and no matter how many times they told me it must have been a dream, I can't shake the feeling that someone was in that room, with me. The part that scares me most isn't what I saw that night. It's that I'll never know if it was looking at me the whole time I was pretending to sleep. It's hard for me to even put this into words, because anytime I talk about it, people usually kind of laugh, or they just say, "Man, you should have been more careful." But the truth is, I didn't do anything that unusual that night. And that's the part that really shakes me up when I think about it. Because it could have happened to anyone, and for me, it happened in this really ordinary stretch of life, where nothing exciting was going on at all. I was about 23 back then, living in this mid-sized apartment complex just outside of town. And it wasn't some luxury place or anything, but it wasn't run down either. Just kind of the usual. Beige carpet in the hallways, those overhead buzzing lights that were always either too dim or too bright. You know the type. And neighbors that I'd see sometimes in the parking lot, but I didn't actually know any of their names. I worked irregular hours at the time, and that night in particular I'd gotten home late, later than I wanted to. My shift had dragged on forever, and my brain felt like mud. So the only thing I was thinking about was how fast I could get into bed and pass out. I remember parking my car and sitting for a minute longer than I needed to, just kind of staring at the steering wheel and gathering the will to get up. It was one of those nights where the air felt heavy. Not cold, just kind of stale. And the parking lot lights gave everything this orange glow that made it all feel a little off. But I wasn't in a spooky mood or anything like that. I was just tired. Finally, I pulled myself out, locked the car, and trudged upstairs to my place. When I got inside, I went straight to the kitchen to grab some water, dropped my keys on the counter, and started pulling off my shoes. That's when I realized my phone wasn't on me. At first, I thought maybe it had slipped into one of my bags, but when I checked the counter, checked my pockets, nothing. I got that sinking feeling in my stomach, because I knew exactly where it was. It had to be in the car. I've got this bad habit of setting it down on the passenger seat or in that little cup holder when I drive home, and then forgetting to grab it. It's not the first time it's happened. I was annoyed, but not enough to really think twice about it. I'd only just come in, I hadn't locked the deadbolt yet, so I figured I'd just go right back down, grab it, and be back inside in under a minute. That's exactly what I did. I pulled my shoes halfway back on, didn't even bother tying them, and went right back out the door. Now, this is the part that still eats at me, because I swear it couldn't have been more than 60 seconds, maybe less, that I was gone. I jogged down the stairs, unlocked the car, grabbed my phone from the seat, and went right back up. The hallway was empty, just like before. I didn't see a soul. I didn't hear anyone. When I got back inside, I closed the door behind me, but, and this is the crucial part, I didn't lock it. I remember thinking, I'll do it in a second, because I was already peeling my shoes off again and setting the phone down on the couch. It was one of those lazy little mistakes that you don't even realize you're making in the moment. I went to brush my teeth before bed, lights on in the bathroom. Everything else dim. I had the electric toothbrush buzzing in my mouth, so when I first thought I heard something, I wasn't sure if it was coming from inside or if it was a neighbor thumping around. It was this faint noise, like a shuffle or a floor creak. I froze for a second, toothbrush still buzzing, foam in my mouth, and I tilted my head. Nothing else, just silence. So I shrugged it off, rinsed out, shut off the bathroom light, and headed for my bedroom. That's when I heard it again, clearer this time, like footsteps, slow ones, on the carpet just outside the hallway. At first I told myself I was overtired, my ears playing tricks, but then I stepped out and glanced toward the living room. And I swear to God I saw a shadow move. I can't even explain the feeling in that moment. It was like my chest dropped into my stomach, and all the air in me turned to ice. Because my brain instantly put the pieces together, the unlocked door, the 60 seconds I'd been gone, and the fact that now someone was in my place. I fumbled for the light switch, hands shaking so bad I almost missed it, and when the living room lit up, I saw him. There was a man, not standing there waiting for me or anything like that, but walking, calm as you like, straight toward my front door. He had this hood pulled up, his face mostly in shadow, but he didn't run, he didn't panic. He just reached for the handle, opened the door, and slipped right out into the hallway. I just stood there, completely paralyzed. It wasn't until the door clicked shut behind him that I realized I'd been holding my breath. I rushed over and slammed the deadbolt shut so hard it stung my hand. My mind was spinning, trying to process what had just happened. I searched the closet, looked through the kitchen, even peeked under the bed like some scared kid. But there was nothing. Nothing was touched. Nothing stolen. Just this stranger who had been in my living room walking around like he belonged there. I called the police, and of course they came out and did their whole routine. They looked through the building, checked the stairwells, but the guy was long gone. One of the officers asked me a bunch of questions I didn't have good answers to. Like, did I notice him following me into the complex? Had I seen him before in the neighborhood? Stuff like that. I didn't think so, but I couldn't be certain. I had been tired, zoning out in the parking lot. Maybe someone had been watching. I didn't sleep at all that night. I left every light on, sat with my back against the wall and a kitchen knife in my hand, just staring at the door. Every little creak of the building made me jump. When the sun finally came up, it was like I could breathe again. It's been years now, and I still don't know who that man was or what he wanted. And honestly, I'm not sure which thought scares me more. The idea that he was just some random trespasser who slipped into the wrong apartment, or the idea that he knew exactly what he was doing, and that night was just a test. Because either way, and I've never really felt safe in my own home since then,